Hello, I am Foolish Leader. I have been felt compelled, led to do something of this nature, just kind of put myself out there, but also at the same time be a little discreet about it. Recently, last week, I had a friend who, earlier this week, my apologies, she messaged me saying, hey, I made a YouTube video and I was told by one of our mutuals, we should talk about it, stuff, things. I'm obviously going to be really good at this. So with that being said, shout out Johnny and Julia. Good times, us three. So without further ado, I would just like to jump right into it. I feel like I'm going to make a lot of brief notes because of this, but this is just a personal history of my mental health, technically. Let's go. So, my childhood was a little different. I had my mom and her boyfriend at the time, her now husband, my stepfather. I had my aunt and her husband, my uncle and his wife, my grandfather and grandmother, my nana and papa. I also had a sister who was 11 months younger than me throughout this whole time. I made note that I had multiple parent figures, I stated, and it was very easy for me to confide with very, very vulnerable information to almost anyone that was listening, even if I did have worry that it was going to be used inappropriately. Sadly, I still did it. It's kind of like, it is a choice, but at the same time, it just felt like second nature. I am not aware of who my biological father is. For Christmas, though, my boyfriend got me a 23andMe kit with the results that I'm about to get. I opened an email today. We're on the last step, waiting. It should take a week. But with that result, my goal is mainly to get a family history of medical stuff from that side of the family that I know nothing about. I guess we will now go into my actual mental health history. I was 12 years old and I was mad. I mean, I was just hitting puberty too. Junior high was hard, bro. It was rough. And one day my sister and I are sitting at a desk at a table with my family, and she made me mad, and I hit her hard on the arm. And my family said I needed anger management, quote. And so I started seeing a counselor, and I saw her for about 2 years, 1.5, 2 years. A lot of different topics were discussed, but it started off with the anger management, went to other stuff that I don't feel comfortable sharing, and then went to why is my homework always bad? Why do I not turn it in whenever I finish it? Why are my grades so poor? Was technically the topic of what I went in there with, which I was told to ask every day. Maybe ask, how can I make my grades better? Like, my counselor's a magician or something, but that is not how it worked. And we just ended up stopping seeing each other because there was just no results coming from it. I think I just got worse, honestly. So, fast forward, I am at the time 18 or 19, one or the other, and I start seeing another therapist for reasons I don't know why I started seeing them. My family just said I needed to see one, I think, and they wanted me to see a counselor who they have ties with, But due to the first counselor, I had trust issues with my family knowing who my counselor was, so I did not want to see him. So he set me up with the person who also shared an office space with him. They were the same company, just different people, and with the HIPAA, I felt more comfortable seeing her. Her and I think we saw each other for like 6 months, a year maybe, but she was really cool. I don't know, I was very demotivated to go to sessions at this time of my life, so I just didn't go, I guess, and stopped going. It's a lot of money to cancel those things, and I just felt bad for keeping on not going, not showing up. So I stopped seeing her. Fast forward to 2021, I start seeing another therapist, and this is a time in my life where I was trying to get out of some trouble that I'd put myself in, and so seeing a therapist sounded really helpful to me. Honestly, I missed the idea, and right then and there I was very hungry for something new. And this person was also Christian based, and I was very hungry for God at the time too. And so I was very open to it. But the sessions were not vigorous, not attention grabbing enough for me. I mean, he did send me home with assignments that I found interesting. He actually did something pretty cool that I think of a lot. He said, let's make a family tree for you. And so we split down the middle, amethyst, 2 lines, and we did this whole side, my mom, my stepdad, my aunt, uncle, cousins, sisters, grandparents, and then this whole side of the page was blank. It's weird how that kind of ties in with what I spoke about earlier. I only saw him for 4 sessions though. I did not feel very comfortable going to session with a man. I wonder why. But yeah, we did not last very long. And then I stopped going to therapy for a while after that. Fast forward, I am 24 at the time, and I went to see my family at work, all working together, and I wasn't working that day, so I was just like saying hi, what's up guys, and I go and say hi to my aunt in the conference room, and she's in a meeting with the counselor who I told you before, who was the partner of the one who I ended up seeing. But they're in there, and so I just went in there, said hey to my aunt, and I'd been very transparent with her about how I was feeling about myself. And for the past year before that, year and a half, I had this feeling in my head. I'd started Googling stuff because I wasn't seeing a therapist, wasn't seeing a psychiatrist, not getting any assessments done. So I was just kind of Googling stuff, figuring it out myself. So I was convinced that I had borderline personality disorder. And so I had told my aunt that, and while she's in there with that guy, he asked, hey, how's she doing? And she said, she was actually just telling me about how she thinks she has BPD. And the guy was like, hey, I can get her set up with a guy, get her an assessment. So this is where the fun part kind of is. So this is where I get my diagnosis, my DSM-5 diagnosis. Fun story about finding this. I could not find the paperwork anywhere, but knowing me, if it is important, I will write it down. First journal I picked up, I found it. It was in there. It was actually the last thing written in that journal. Amethyst, she has a lot of empty journals lying around. Anywho, my DSM-5 diagnoses were severe major depressive, recurrent. Hello? Sorry. substance use disorder, alcohol abuse, and bipolar 1 disorder, manic and severe. He also gave me a list of disorders that he caught and that the computer caught as well from my answer sheet. So we had a 2-hour long session, and then I had to go home and take a multi-question questionnaire. So many questions. And then I was given my results about 2 weeks later. When he gave me my DSM-5 diagnoses, and then he also gave me a list of disorders that I most likely dealt with. The first one that he mentioned is somatic disorder, which is just being constantly aware of the feelings that are brought on, like physical feelings of depression or anxiety. Like for me, it's my stomach, and sometimes I can't swallow. I get knots in my throat a lot. Headaches from crying, stuff like that. It's just excessive whenever I deal with it. Somatic disorder, major depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety. And then he gave me one last personality disorder. So this one's dependent personality disorder. An excessive need to be taken care of. It at times makes me feel helpless, submissive, and incapable of caring for myself. I have trouble making decisions and often rely on others for emotional and physical support. Exciting, huh? I was reading a lot in my journals around this time too, and what I saw during this time of my diagnosis was my emotional dysregulation, my outbursts, and my irritability. Very, very crazy stuff. So after my diagnosis, he says, listen, I actually know a girl right behind me, in the building behind me. She's a certified dialectical behavioral therapist, and I think she would do great in helping you with your dependent personality disorder. I said, heck yeah, sign me up. So I'm 25 years old, and for almost 3 years, I saw this counselor. Call her SB. Some bitch. I'm kidding. She was not one, but we can call her SB. So she was very helpful. One of my first sessions that I got there, she came up with a suggestion. She made me aware of a disorder called PMDD, standing for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It has a lot to do with your cycle if you're a woman, and yeah, that was a crazy one. PMDD really opened my eyes. That diagnosis helped me better mental plan when shit was gonna hit the fan. And for the most part, it does. It has a better explanation of why I feel the way I do. Sometimes, not all the time. But usually, most of the time, why I am upset is in me or in front of me. So, PMDD was a very helpful pathway. And after I got these diagnoses, I decided to see a psychiatrist about a year and a half later. So now we're in April of 2024. I start seeing a psychiatrist. I am given fluoxetine, which is Prozac, for PMDD, actually. That's what they prescribe, is SSRIs. Then I was also given gabapentin for emotional outbursts and anxiety. And then I was also having trouble sleeping and staying asleep, so they gave me trazodone. Sometimes I use trazodone. Most of the time, doesn't help. So, no, I don't usually. I still have that. I haven't seen my psychiatrist in a while, and I still have a lot of medication back up. So I start seeing the psychiatrist, and things start looking really good for me. I found a guy on TikTok. I'll have to put his stuff in my description somehow. But this guy, oh man, his topics, the way he integrated everything, all of his information that he found, it was so mesmerizing. He was talking mostly about philosophy. He would have subjects such as quantum physics, muses, the genie who we all have, which genie comes from the word genius, or genius comes from the word genie. Abracadabra. So I find this guy on TikTok, I think this is in June, and I'm like, you know what? I really want to go to school because I want to learn more stuff like this. And so in June of 2024, I was signed up for classes. I was signed up for a lifespan growth and development. Signed up for a philosophy class, of course. Signed up for a geology class and a math class. I don't even remember what math it was. I can't stand math. This is cat. We go back. So I start going to these classes, and I'm learning so much information. Thank you, professor. Thank you. In class, I was learning about adverse childhood experiences, epigenetic inheritance, biopsychosocial factors, dimensions of family systems, parenting, life satisfaction. Those were a bunch of our titles for our material. During the beginning of this semester, it's so crazy how stuff happens. My boyfriend and I were talking one day, and he said something. It's a little inappropriate, so I'm not going to go into exactly what he said, but it brought me into a flashback for the first time in my life, I'm pretty sure. Maybe second. We'll get into that later. But he was just saying something, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like that just brought me back to a really bad time in my life when I was a child in a house that is no longer torn down, or no longer here because it's torn down. So that was a very scary moment. I definitely brought it up with my counselor at the time, my therapist. And then not even a week later, I think, I was with two of my philosophy classmates. We were eating at proms, and they brought up Fortnite, and that also brought me to an embarrassingly bad time in my life. Visually, emotionally, mentally, I was there. So of course I bring this up with my therapist, and we didn't really have an answer to it at first, but after a little bit more time in my lifespan growth and development class, and I'm sure a bit more Googling, I found a new lead. CPTSD. Stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I explain it, you hear PTSD and you think of war heroes, people who come back veterans, and they can't hear fireworks. That's an exaggerated startle response, which me, if I get scared out of nowhere, like I got scared the other day at work, freaking screamed. And I was like, oh my god, don't do that. What is your problem? But honestly, like, what's my problem? Why I gotta act like that? Why I gotta jump like that? Why I gotta do that? And so, oh my goodness, make up your mind. Come on. So the complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because obviously I ain't no gun-toting Marine and some bitch, you know. CPTSD is from repeated, chronic, long-lasting traumatic events. For me, it was emotional and sexual abuse, and also emotional neglect. The beginning stages of CPTSD occur before cognitive abilities and a sense of self have even been fully developed. So I don't even know who I am, and I'm already. Okay. It directly affects the brain, communication system development. As a child, it teaches the brain to constantly assume and respond to minor signs of possible threat, resulting in adrenaline and cortisol release flowing into the body and leading to disassociation, shutdown, and freezing. Adrenaline and cortisol also affect immune and digestive systems, causing psychosomatic symptoms, which also goes back to one of the disorders that the assessment gave me earlier, somatic disorder. That was fun to piece together. The behavioral patterns in childhood follow into adulthood. Stress response is hyperactive. Changes in consciousness, personal relationships, how I view myself, the world, my perpetrators, my relationships, all of it. There's a lot of disassociation, a lot of repressed memories. Good stuff. Not really. I'm being sarcastic sometimes. Calm down. But it leads to just a bunch of substance use, sex, spending, working. I also have problems with emotional regulation. I deal with depression, suicidal ideation, controlling anger. It causes me to feel detachment, helplessness, shame, and guilt at a very highly amplified level. It sucks. I would say that out of all of these things that have been labeled to me, absolutely, like depression and anxiety had their time as the ones that affected me the most. But today, right now, I would say the dependent personality disorder and the complex post-traumatic stress disorder. They make a lot of moves. Lots of moves. They cause motion, bro. So, I don't know if it's like the DPD is inside of the CPTSD, but the CPTSD can lead to significant changes in how I perceive and interact with others due to the impact of trauma on my psyche. I've been shown a betrayal of safety, persistent low self-worth. I approach relationships sometimes with suspicion and avoidance and anticipation for betrayal. Or conversely, you can just reverse it. I overextend trust to gain approval, leaving me vulnerable to exploitation. Some crazy stuff. It's not fun, for sure. But at the end of the day, like, there's so much to be thankful for. There's a lot to be grateful for all the time. One of the things that I was Googling earlier today that I was looking at before I came home, I didn't really finish doing research on it, but something that I noticed was that CPTSD can, a little bit from what I stated earlier, it can cause changes in how I view others in my life. Even if I have an attacker, I can feel one way about them and then feel another way about them. Same thing goes with everyone else in my life. I can feel completely against them one day and then I miss them the next day, even though I had every reason to be like that. I had every reason not to want them in my life. It's weird. It's a teeter-totter. But yeah. I guess how I would like to end this, because I've come to the end of my notes. Good job. This is why we take notes. Oh my god, 25 minutes? What? What? That's crazy. Okay. Number 1. You don't have to believe everything you think. You heard yourself. Usually most of the stuff we first come up with in our head is a lie because your brain is just trying to make it fit a narrative that you have in your head. So please, you don't have to believe everything you think. If you need to find something to believe, keep thinking. Don't just go with the first one. Number 2, without the spirit of play, most thought is worry and most movement is panic. So don't forget to have a little fun, okay? Remember to seek the positive. Their words are powerless until you give them power. I mean, words are words, and what we speak definitely has power, but you also have the choice to give what is said to you the power. If it is going to be powerful, if it is not, that is up to you. Use your words wisely. You don't have it that hard is not up to them. You do not have to fight battles alone. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Bob Dylan once said that wasted words prove the warn that he not being born is busy dying. And how I take that is, if you're not trying to become a new person, if you're not trying to change and learn and grow, you're not living, man. That's important. All right, guys. The key to consistency is to start small. So here we go. The future is now, baby. See y'all later.